Hi, I'm Congresswoman Terry Sewell. To my constituents, to Alabama's state and local elected officials, and to my district's many community leaders, I am honored to come before you today to report on the state of Alabama's 7th Congressional District. Last November 2018, Americans made their voices heard. They turned out and elected the most diverse Congress in our nation's history, and Democrats took back the House of Representatives, picking up the most seats in a generation. The House Democratic majority has a bold agenda to increase access to affordable health care, strengthen wages, and repair our infrastructure. In Congress, my focus has always been on bringing better opportunities and more resources to Alabama's 7th Congressional District. I am happy to report that our office worked to return over $2.6 million in retroactive benefits to our constituents in 2018. Our district also received $1.1 billion in federal grants to fund critically important projects throughout the district. Our office motto, Constituents First, remains our most important priority, representing our commitment to ensuring that we are always ready to assist you and your family throughout the year. I know that for Alabama to succeed, everyone in our state needs better opportunities to climb the economic ladder and strengthen their competitiveness in today's job market. And for those opportunities to exist here in Alabama and throughout the 7th District, we need to ensure that our state's engine of growth maintains its global competitiveness and continues to create jobs. We like to say in our district that our #1 focus is jobs, 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 jobs. That means we must work hard to provide the educational tools to help open doors of opportunity for all of us. Alabama's 7th District is home to the University of Alabama, to UAB, outstanding community colleges, and 7 historically black colleges and universities that help prepare our students for success. This year, I am proud that we secured a 14% increase in federal funding for our HBCUs, and we passed a loan relief for HBCUs struggling with debt, like Stillman College. We must recommit ourselves to helping ensure that all of our schools of higher learning are strengthened for future generations to come. In today's economy, it's imperative that Alabama continues to develop a competitive workforce through career and technical education. Too often, manufacturers and business owners tell me that many jobs that they have remain unfilled. Why? Because too many people don't have the skills they need for their companies to grow and remain competitive. We need to work together to provide all Alabamians with the necessary skills to be competitive in a 21st century workforce. That is why I have been working across the aisle with my colleagues in Congress to encourage businesses to work with community colleges and universities to develop apprenticeship programs that will lead to more skilled workers and higher paying jobs for constituents in the 7th Congressional District. Our office has introduced the Workforce Development Tax Credit Act, a bipartisan bill that will reward companies that have training programs and hire those workers for skilled manufacturing jobs. It would also help to make sure that we assist those companies in creating a recruitment pipeline which will reduce costly turnover and provide tax incentives for businesses to provide apprenticeship programs in manufacturing. One of the many ways we've been working over the past 8 years to help support our constituents is by helping them find high-paying jobs. I am a firm believer that the key to success begins with the dignity of a job. This past year, I was proud to host our 7th annual Congressional Job Fair in Montgomery, Alabama. At this event on the campus of Alabama State University, we had over 1,100 job seekers and 104 major employers in industries ranging from automobile to the military to health services. In 2019, we will begin our annual job fair. This year, it will be in Selma to offer our constituents an opportunity to talk with some of our state's biggest employers about quality job opportunities in the Black Belt. This year, we also continued our Career Readiness program with Project Ready, a workforce development initiative that offers training by career professionals in partnership with our educational institutions throughout our district. I know that creating opportunity means standing up for policies that strengthen Alabama's economy. As the only representative from Alabama on the House Ways and Means Committee, I have and will continue to stand up for free and fair trade policies that expand markets for our farmers and manufacturers. And as always, I'm working across the aisle to make health care more affordable. Last year, we were successful in thwarting the Republicans' attempts to repeal the Affordable Care Act. But that's not enough. Rising health care costs still squeeze paychecks, and millions still lack coverage, especially in states like Alabama that did not expand Medicaid. So I am working closely with my colleagues to stabilize and strengthen the Affordable Care Act. Expand coverage, simplify the healthcare insurance process, and reduce costs for all Americans. And the facts are clear. Premiums and healthcare costs are on the rise, and they're higher in states that have not expanded Medicaid. Over 90% of our rural hospital closures have been in states like Alabama that did not expand Medicaid. In Alabama, approximately 314 more people would be covered under Medicaid expansion. Not doing so is a poor example of why we must put people before politics. Alabama's governor needs to expand Medicaid, and I want to promote legislation that would provide more incentives for her to do so. So on one of the first bills that I introduced this 116th Congress, it was to expand the federal match to allow states that expand Medicaid in the future to still receive a 100% federal match for the first 3 years. This legislation would help cover the costs of expanding Medicaid to thousands of low-income families and non-elderly adults without children by giving them access to affordable health insurance. Last year, I also made it a top priority to help improve services in rural areas in my district. I am proud to have worked with my colleagues across the aisle to secure funding for struggling rural hospitals. To improve health services in rural communities, we introduced the Rural Emergency Medical Center Act and fought for funding for community health centers that improve necessary primary care services in rural communities. We also hosted a health fair in Lowndes County with Senator Doug Jones to encourage residents to get screened for health concerns resulting from exposure to raw sewage, and to promote our legislation to provide grants for low-income residents to install septic tanks. Senator Jones and I were successful in getting the Rural Septic Tank Access Act included in the Farm Bill. Since I came to Congress in 2011, I have worked to bring resources and solutions to the families living in Alabama's Black Belt, especially those with inadequate wastewater and sewer conditions. I am proud to report that this past year, we were able to secure an additional $1.8 billion in funding for water and wastewater infrastructure. I have toured homes with no wastewater systems at all, and communities that rely on unsafe spray fields for their wastewater treatment. I have met with families in rural Alabama who struggle with the health and economic challenges created by failing wastewater systems. Every day, their stories inspire me to work and fight harder in Congress for stronger investments in our wastewater infrastructure. The funding we secure will help get our rural communities access to resources to bring their wastewater infrastructure into the 21st century. I am excited to report that this investment is already working in cities like Uniontown. In November 2018, the U.S. Department of Agriculture announced a $23.4 million funding to repair Uniontown's existing wastewater treatment plant and install new infrastructure. USDA's assistance in Uniontown is an important step forward, but the wastewater crisis in the Black Belt continues. I will continue to fight for Lowndes County and Perry County and all of the state's residents who live in inadequate basic infrastructure. While I am happy to report many successes over the past year, there is always more work left to be done to improve the lives and opportunities of all those living in Alabama's 7th Congressional District. One of my top priorities in 2019 is the passage of the Voting Rights Advancement Act, which will restore the Voting Rights Act of 1965. As a proud native of Selma and your representative in Alabama's Voting Rights and Civil Rights District, I believe with every fiber of my being that we have a duty to ensure that every American, regardless of race, creed, or color, has the opportunity to make their vote count at the ballot box. To be clear, voting rights are under attack. Yes, old battles have become new again. We saw evidence of that in the 2018 midterm elections. In Georgia, the Republican candidate for governor put 53,000 voter registrations on hold, nearly 70% of which were for Black voters. We saw it in North Dakota, where Republicans established a new requirement that voters show ID with a residential street address. That state law was a barrier to voting for thousands of Native Americans who live on reservations and use P.O. boxes rather than residential street addresses. We saw it in North Carolina, where state legislators closed 20% of early voting locations, making it harder to vote. And we also saw in New Hampshire, Florida, Texas, and Wisconsin, and Alabama, where students face harder hurdles to cast their ballots. The foot soldiers of the civil rights movement shed blood, marched, and died for the right to vote in Alabama, in my hometown of Selma, and throughout the 7th Congressional District. I firmly believe that we must not only protect that legacy, but we must also advance it. So I'm leading the charge to help rectify the ongoing injustices that many voters, especially minority voters, face when they go to the ballot box. We plan to participate in field hearings around this country to prove that voter suppression is still alive and well in America. We must create a steady drumbeat to restore the Voting Rights Act of 1965, because voting rights has become a partisan issue in this day and age. So while our bill will pass the House of Representatives, since Democrats will support it, we must convince Republicans in the Senate to join us in order for our bill to become law. We all have a role to play in raising public awareness about the need to restore the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Indeed, we have a lot of work to do this year in Congress. We must work to create jobs and raise wages in communities that have been left behind. We must ensure that all Alabamians, from families in Montgomery and Birmingham to those in the rural Black Belt, have adequate access to health care. We will fight to make sure that every Alabamian has the tools they need to thrive in today's economy. And we will work to make sure that every American who casts a ballot has their vote counted. Thank you for the opportunity to serve you in Congress. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America and the state of Alabama. Thank you.